HJP, today I have a video for you that I took from my climb to 1700 Rapid on Lichess. So let's get right into it. My opponent here was rated 1607. My rating at the time of this game was 1642, and I'm playing the black pieces. So white begins by playing a London, and I decide to play an anti-London. My idea in my opening is to create counterplay on the queen side, specifically against this pawn, at least in the beginning. And white's idea is to create this little pyramid, develop his pieces in a safe way, and try to outmaneuver me in in a slow positional game. So I go for some immediate aggression, and I'm gaining space on the queen side, connecting my pawns, trying to mobilize my pieces behind my pawns to use my space advantage. I castle on the king side so that I could more easily move my queen side pawns. I shuffle around my pieces, and I have the initiative at this point. White has to react to what I'm trying to do. I see that these two pieces are vulnerable to a fork if I can get my knight here. White realizes that and he defends this square with his bishop. My plan now is to definitely remove this bishop from the defense of the square, but also I have to deal with these two knights because they are potential defenders of this square. Now that these two pawns have advanced, they could not easily kick my knight out of here. Even if the opportunity for the fork is gone, meaning like maybe the queen moves away or something, my knight would be a pain in the ass on this square up in white's territory, and I can continue to apply pressure over there with my knight firmly planted on that square. So I'm able to trade off one of those knights, and I prevented my opponent from opening the file. If he opens this file, then this rook is free to do some more stuff, and I want to limit his play. His rook is sort of boxed in this little area of the board. I want to keep him there. White tries to create counterplay by attacking me on the king side, but in doing so is actually inducing weaknesses in front of his king. That's something I'm going to keep in mind. At some point, I can shift my attention to the king side now that the king is weak. So I'm able to get rid of that other knight, and now it's just this bishop I have to deal with in the fight for this square. And now I've turned my attention a little bit. I realize I'm losing a pawn, so I have to do something to compensate for that. My plan is I reroute my queen over here, and I'm attacking this rook that I had limited the mobility of by locking him into this file. And while attacking him, I'm also double attacking this pawn. So while I have temporarily lost a pawn, White has to address the new problems I've created for him, and even if he finds a solution to these problems, my backup plan is to capture this pawn. So he connects his rooks, which defends this, and I go ahead and take my pawn back with tempo on the queen. Queen has to move. So granted, this pawn is hanging now, but by moving my knight back into the game, getting him off the side of the board, I've disconnected the coordination between his minor piece and his queen. Now his minor piece is attacked, so if he takes this pawn, he loses his bishop. He has to do something about that. So he defends his bishop. Now, that plan I talked about earlier, where I was going to shift my focus over to the king side, trying to simultaneously play on both sides of the board, I get my dark-squared bishop into the game, the only piece that wasn't doing anything. Now it's attacking the defender of the bishop. Sorry. So he sees my threat. I'm threatening to capture his rook. He's going to try to one-up me and attack my queen. I could just move my queen out of the way, and he still has to deal with this threat. So my queen is no longer attacking the bishop, and he's moved his rook out of danger. So I am attacking this pawn 1, 2, 3 times, and it's only defended once. I will create a new problem for him. I'll take it with my knight. If I took it with my rook, he had the possibility of sacrificing in exchange. So we just trade minor pieces, and I emerge up a pawn. My pieces have invaded his position, and his king is weak. However, this is protected again, and this pawn is hanging, so we still have a game. It's definitely not over yet. He tries to attack my queen. I'm like, okay, well, now I want to get my queen to the correct side of the board. I need to get my queen over here to participate in this attack. His queen is also displaced. The path I see is I can come in this way. I'm sorry, not taking that pawn, but I can come in this way to get over to the king. So I slide back. He advances rather than taking the pawn. Passed pawns must be pushed. I know this pawn isn't really passed, but it's getting dangerously close to my 8th rank. I say my counterplay is better. I'm threatening to come in. I'm also threatening this pawn. And white totally lost the game here. He intended to trade off my attackers to nullify my attack. However, in doing so, he has once again disconnected his bishop from his queen. My rook still attacks it. I'm totally winning here. White is just busted. There's nothing he can do. This is another blunder. I mean, he could have tried harder to defend, even though he's totally lost. And I actually have unstoppable checkmate in 2. He's in check, and I'm simultaneously attacking his rook. So, I mean, he could block, but I would just take his rook. He moves over to the side, and I capture this rook with check. The rook can block, and then I take. And then I control both of these ranks with my rook and my queen, which would be on this square, and it's just checkmate. There's nothing you could do. I mean, technically the queen could come in, but then I just take the queen. He takes back, and it's done. Like he's done. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.